Isaiah 38 in verse number 1. And in those days was Hezekiah sick unto death. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came unto him and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live. I want everybody to listen to me this morning. Life is not always fair. We have raised a generation that got a trophy just for participating, where you got your pants beat off of you or not. Life is not fair. And sometimes bad stuff happens to good people. Have you ever noticed your greatest disappointments come on the heels of some of your greatest victories and blessings? My dad used to tell me, son, don't make major decisions when you're up high on the mountain or when you're real low down in the valley. He said, because you'll make an emotional decision and not a spiritual decision. I bet you there's people all over this room this morning that one day you got something that was totally unexpected. Boy, that news was so devastating. You looked around and said, wow, where did that come from? Can I tell you, life is filled with unexpected crosses, unexpected burdens, unexpected trials. While there is no father that expects to hear that one of his children has gone away from God, there's not a mother that expects to hear that man has left you and forsaken you and the family. None of us expect to get the bad report for our health or the bad report of our finances. But you know what encourages me this morning? I may not expect it, you may not expect it, we didn't see it coming, but I'm glad there's a sovereign, omniscient God that sees both sides of the mountain, and he would say to us, fear not tomorrow, because I've already been there. It is totally, there is no way you can explain what has happened to Hezekiah. In fact, when he begins to pray to the Lord, he makes this statement, Lord, I have done right in your sight. I have walked before you with a perfect heart. God, I have done everything in my life that I've known that you wanted me to do, and I've tried to do honest, and I've tried to do right. Now all of a sudden I got this report that I'm going to die and I'm not going to live. God, I just cannot explain this. And church, can I say to you, if you live in this real world, one day you're going to get a report that's totally unexplainable. Why did it happen? Why did it turn out this way? Why did it get that bad? Why did it get that? And you cannot live the rest of your life in the wandering wilderness of why. There are just some things you can't understand and you can't explain it, and you just got to take it to the Lord and leave it there. It's unexplainable. It's unexpected. And I believe this morning I'd be right in saying that it was unwanted. I believe the last thing Hezekiah wanted to do was die. He is 39 years old. He is in the prime of his life. His nation is prosperous. His nation is at peace. The hand of God, the blessing of God is everywhere. Life couldn't be any greater. Life couldn't be more wonderful. And I believe the last thing that he wants is to get sick unto death and die. And you listen to your pastor this morning, in the real world, unwanted things come to all of us. You say, well, preacher, doesn't the Bible say in everything give thanks? Yes, but there are some things easier to say than it is to do. If I walk out and I got a flat tire on my car, I'm not going to say, well, glory to God. Boy, there are some things none of us want. I don't want my son or my daughter to break mine and my wife's heart and go away from God. I don't want that. I don't want to have to bury anybody else that I love with cancer and heart disease and diabetes. I don't want to have another member to call me and say, we're breaking up, we're divorcing. Preacher, I've got fired from a job. Preacher, the whole world's coming down upon me. None of us, we don't want the burdens. We don't want the trouble. We don't want the trials. And I'm the first to tell you, I don't have all the answers. But I do know this one thing. I didn't say it. You didn't say it. God Almighty said it. That somehow, that all things work together for good to them that love God. Is there anybody here today that loves God? Well, if you love God, there's a higher power and a stronger hand that knows the way through the wilderness. And when I don't understand it and I can't explain it and I don't even like it, He still loves me. He still cares for me. And no matter how bad it looks, He still has my best interest in mind. You say, what has that got to do with us? Jesus Christ is the master mixer, and He takes some of this unexpected and some of this unexplainable and some of this unwanted, and He works it together and He mixes it together. And on the other side of your dilemma, on the other side of your confusion, you stand and say with the psalmist, He doeth all things well. Can I remind you, He's never made a mistake. He's never sinned. He's never done anybody wrong. He loves you too much. He's too divine. He's too sovereign. He's too holy. You can trust a God that has your best interest in mind. That when the mountain is too high and the river's too wide and the valley's too deep, I've got somebody to lean on and somebody to trust. That's what I'm thanking Him for this morning. The problem may not go away. The affliction may not go away. My God, but standing somewhere in the shadows is a faithful God who said, I will never, never, never leave thee nor forsake thee. And the report is devastating. But I want you to notice what happens in verse 3 and verse number 4. The request is desperate. You know what Hezekiah does? I like what he doesn't do. He doesn't get mad. He doesn't get bitter. And he doesn't blame God. He turned his face to the wall. Boy, he's in a solitary place. Nobody there but him and God. And the Bible said, and he cried and prayed unto the Lord. The King James uses an interesting word in the text. It said he wept, and not just wept, but he wept sore. That means he is spilling out everything that's in his heart. It's painful. It hurts. It is uncomfortable. But he is just telling God all about it. He's not holding anything back. His tears are falling down. His request is going up. He is calling upon God. But aren't you glad when nobody understands and nobody cares? There is a place where you and I can go and call on God and cry out to God, and tears are a language, and God understands that. You know what I love about God? If I see you troubled, if I see you crying, I have to go up and ask, what's wrong? But I'm glad God doesn't do that. He doesn't ask what's wrong. He just comes up and says, I know what you're going through. Hezekiah never asked God to heal him. He didn't ask God to give him 15 more years. In fact, he specifically didn't ask God for nothing. He just cried and wept sore. He just cried. Lord, I just got a thought. Lord, have mercy. His grief is so unexpressible. He don't even know how to tell God how he feels. His grief is so inexpressible. He can't form the words. He can't pray a pretty prayer. He couldn't write it down on a piece of paper. He just, Lord, he is so limited. And all he can do is cry and beg and plead and agonize with, Hezekiah, I don't know what to say, Preacher, his grief is so bad he can't express it. He's just weeping. He's just crying. He's just bellowing out to God. And I love what God said. God came on the scene and said, boy, I've heard your prayer and I've seen your tears and I know what's in your heart and I know what you're trying to say. And God healed him and God forgave him and God gave him 15 more years. God gave him what he didn't even ask for, because God knew what was in his heart. And when everybody in your world misunderstands you, you take this to heart. God knows what's in your heart. God knows what is in my heart. And let me ask you this, have you ever been so overwhelmed and by bad news and so tore up about what's going on in your world you didn't even know how to let me ask you this, have you ever felt so sorry and low down you didn't even know how to ask God to forgive you? Have you ever felt so low and lonely you didn't even have to ask God to help you, and you just moaned and you just groaned and you just said, oh God, sweet Jesus, precious Lord, oh God, sweet Jesus, precious Lord. Honey, aren't you glad there's one at the right hand of God the Father that understands? Oh God, oh Lord, precious Jesus, he's not listening what's coming out your mouth as much as he knows what's down in your heart. I've seen thy tears and I've heard your cry. And can I remind you today, it's okay. It's okay to ask God to do something for you. Because where can we go but to the Lord? Let me ask you, where should we go but to the Lord? Who knoweth whether that God has sovereignly and providentially arranged circumstances that we don't have anywhere to look to or turn to but him? And can I say, he is not only the God that can help a whole nation, he's a God that can help one of his little bitty children. He is so much God that he can do the big things, but I'm glad he's so much God he can still do the little things. While he's just God, he can do anything and all things. And can I remind you this morning that when God is all you've got, he is all that you need.